So here we go. A few different things introduced in Chapter 1. First of which is looking at measurements, imperial measurements versus what we call system international measurements, or the measurements we use here in Canada. Imperial measurements still strongly used in the United States. Those would be the old style measurements like foot and yard and mile. The system international measurements, or the metric unit measurements, are the ones we use here in Canada and are recognized by science communities around the world. Be the metric system, so kilometers, meters, centimeters, millimeters, and using those same prefixes with other units as well, like grams and liters. So first of all, section 1.1 deals with just looking at some imperial measurements. Section 1.2 looks at measuring lengths and distances, again using, the metric system. So let's have a look at this table. Imperial units. So some of the imperial units that you need to be familiar with, for example, or some of which are the inch, of which you would recognize as being, there'd be 12 of them in that ruler that you might have stuck in your binder. If you have a small one in your pencil case, it might be about 6 inches long. Chapter or section 1.1 and 1.2 deal a lot with what we call reference. What can we refer to as being approximately 1 inch long? So as an example, what generally a lot of people can do to refer to as being a 1 inch long would be the one digit of their thumb. So from the tip of your thumb to the end of the first knuckle would be about 1 inch long. Referent for a foot obviously would be most likely your foot. If you have small feet, maybe a little bit less. If you have large feet, maybe, if you have small feet, it would have to be a little bit more. If you have large feet, it would be a little bit less, but at least you have some kind of an idea. Obviously, I'm sure at this point in your life, you've done some pacing out about how many feet something is. Relationship that you do need to know is that 1 foot is 12 inches long. Hopefully that's one that you did know. If not, we will use that conversion factor later. A yard, which you might refer to as a yardstick. Most likely you've probably referred to them or seen them as meter sticks. Well, a meter stick is actually a little bit longer than a yardstick. A yardstick contains only 3 feet. So if we look at our relationship between units, it is 3 feet. And because it is 3 feet, it would be 36 inches. But a referent for a yard, for many people, it would be from the middle of their body to the tip of their finger. For, obviously smaller, shorter people, maybe a little bit more than that. For taller people with longer arms, it would be maybe a little bit less than that. But for many average people, it's what we call arm span, which measures from your chest, middle of your chest, to fingertips. And then a mile is approximately, and I often ask this question about how many times, how long it would take you to walk about 4 laps of the track. And it's usually, if you're walking okay pace, it's about a 20-minute walk. Because the track is about 4 laps of the track could be 1,600 meters, which I believe is just a little bit shy of a mile, or it's about a mile. Some relationship between units: 1 mile is 1,760 yards, and if we wanted to convert that to feet, it would be multiply that by 352.80. Now these conversion factors, most of them are found on your data sheet. The one you've already been given, you will be allowed to refer to that on any tests or quizzes that are coming up. Some of them, maybe the easy one, this one here, might not be on that sheet, but it is something that you should kind of commit to memory. It'll just be easier in the long run. One other thing that we need to touch on before we move on is looking at the measurements on an imperial ruler. Imperial ruler obviously measuring in inches. So what I've done is I've taken this one chunk of 1 inch, and I've blown it up really, really big, which is down below here. just so we can see the measurements on that chunk. So with inches, they can be measured in a number of different varying fraction sizes. So for example, obviously if I take that 1 inch space and I divide it into 2, each of these is going to be about a ½ inch. So this measurement here, this would indicate 1/2 an inch. And if I divided that space into quarters, this would be 1, this would be 2. Whoops. Let me do those again. This would be 1/4 inch, this would be 2/4 inches, this would be 3/4 inches, this would be 4/4 inches, so these are referred to as quarter inches. And dividing it into more, this would be 1/8 of an inch because I divide this space between 0 and 1 into 8 spaces, so this would be 1/8 of an inch. And then if I divide it even smaller, I'm going to change colors here just so it's easier to see. If I divide that into, well, if we count those out, that would be 16 different spaces between 0 and 1. Whoops. That would be, obviously then, a 1/16 of an inch. Now, you can actually get imperial rulers which measure even a finer detail. This is 1/16, which measure even a finer detail, 1/32. Some drafting rulers, this is 1/32. You could get some drafting rulers which even measure a smaller space. They divide that in again is to 1/64. Now, you don't need to know how to measure those, but you do need to make sure that you're aware that we could take a measurement unit and divide it up into chunks and be able to refer to parts of that measurement as parts of that chunk. So it's just something that a lot of people generally get confused on with respect to looking at an imperial ruler and measuring in ½ inches or 1/4 inches or eighths of inches. Okay. So I'll continue on with the next examples in the next video, so please follow along.